And this message is to all us preachers. You know, we're always preaching to a congregation. And of course, as a preacher, sometimes we may visit a church and sit on the congregation. But basically speaking, we're always preaching or teaching the other people. And my precious wife made me aware of something that we don't think about. You know, some of us, well, let me back up and say, some people goes to college to get a good education, especially to religious seminars where they can learn the Bible. And don't get me wrong, I'm not really saying nothing against that. The Bible says, study to show thyself approved. But I don't believe it really means go to school. I think it means to get the Word down and study for yourself. But one of the biggest problems we have, and yes, I've been to college, but not to a seminar. I went to college to work in the field of computers a lot of years ago. And of course, during that period of time, I learned some things that didn't really mean anything to me, but regardless, I learned some stuff. But I guess I had too much hillbilly in me because I never did learn to speak right. And I've learned over time that it seems the biggest percentage of the preachers, and I don't know why it is, when they're given a sermon, enjoy putting out $1 million words. Now I know at times I say stuff from the Bible that's probably over some people's heads. And this is the part that my wife got on to me about. You see, we need to stop and realize that there's members in our congregation, whether it be in our regular church, or here on the internet, wherever it may be, that for one reason or not, may not understand everything we're saying. We may be talking above their heads. We may be using words that's beyond their understanding. And you know, those people are just as important as the highly intelligent people. They need to understand what we're saying. As my wife says, excuse me, at times we need to get down to a child level. And you know, I think that's one of the things that Jesus was trying to tell us when he was teaching to the children. And the disciples got on to him. And he says, suffer the little children, and forbid not that they come unto me. There was people that he was calling children that weren't really children. Again, excuse me, as I said, I'm still fighting off this cold. Pretty congested. But we have a tendency to ignore the fact that there are people in our congregation that may not understand what we're saying. We tend to forget that there's people in the congregation that may not have the abilities that we have to remember things we've said. In other words, they may have a short retention span to where that they can sit and read something for a few minutes and then they lose interest. We may be guilty of the same thing. We may be standing up there preaching our head off, and some lost soul back in the congregation, knowing that he's lost or she's lost, and listening to what's said to understand what they're supposed to do, but yet we're preaching above their heads to where they don't know what we're talking about. I think about the eunuch, however you want to say it, that was traveling on the road, and Paul went to him and he was reading from the Bible. Paul asked him if he understood what he was reading. He said, "How can I if I don't have somebody to show me?" There's people in our congregations just like that. We need to stop and think of those individuals. When we're up there in that pulpit preaching as hard as we can preach, we need to remember who makes up the congregation. There's a possibility that there may be a lost soul in that congregation that's listening to the word that will lead them to salvation and not catch it, go out the door and die and go to hell. That individual's life at judgment time will be on our hands, the ones that failed to teach them right. We need to really stop and spend some time evaluating who we are, what we are, and if we're taking everyone into consideration. We need to make our sermons in such a manner that it will get the attention of the individuals and they will follow what we're saying and be able to continue on learning about God and His ways. Last night I spent quite a bit of time, and then this morning when I got up, I spent more time thinking about these situations and realizing how much we may be failing what we're supposed to be doing.